y'all doing today? This beautiful, warm Juneteenth. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Sanaa.
I'm so happy to be here with you today. Good. You're one of my favorite people. So, let's get started.
Sure.
So, Love and Basketball, which we collaborated on. I cannot tell you how there's not a day that goes by over the last 20 years where somebody doesn't come up to me and say what Love and Basketball means to them.
You're welcome.
Or how they watch it, once a week. I get tweeted about it. It truly has, when I travel around the world, people talk about it. It's dubbed in every language. It truly is a modern classic and obviously has touched people in a real way. How does it make you feel? She's laughing at me.
Sorry.
I'm trying to be in character.
Before I get into that, I do want to say foremost props to you for your film debut that you had out here, and now you're about to direct, which is amazing. Following in my footsteps, which makes me very proud.
I'm going to put you in a movie. I'm going to make you act.
Love and Basketball, it's surreal that it's sustained itself over, it's been 20 years now, and given the fight that it took to get made, the probably 1,000 little things that happened to get you in it, and how close it came for you not to be in it, and you are such a huge part of the success of that film. I mean, you are Monica and embodied this character that I love so much. And I mean, as an artist, you hope that your work can move people. That's at the end of the day what you want, and the fact that people keep discovering it is a pretty amazing thing.
Did you see I didn't look down while you were talking?
I appreciate it.
You talked about how that's a pet peeve. Interviewers look down in the middle of your answer, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, so one of the beauties of Love and Basketball is it's not just a story about sports with a little romance in the background. It's a story about love of self, love of a person, and yes, love of sport. And a love that is specific to the Black experience. What drew you to this particular story?
Well, the whole reason for it coming into being was that I loved When Harry Met Sally, and I wanted to make a Black When Harry Met Sally. That was really the first impetus, because we weren't being put into love stories, and I wanted to see myself reflected. So. But once I had that idea, then it's about how do I personalize it, and then I started wanting to tell the story of this girl that I felt I hadn't seen as well, an athlete.
And you were Monica. There was a lot of Monica taken from you and your hubby, right?
Yes. The thing, when you come out with something, the first thing you come out with, I absolutely think should be a personal story, and a story only you can tell, and that it kind of shows the Hollywood and the world what kind of filmmaker you want to be. And this was a very personal story. My first kiss was 10 seconds, not 5, but we did count on our fingers, and so it's fun to pull stuff like that from your life. But I just know I grew up feeling so different because I love sports and was made fun of for that, or called a tomboy, or made to feel like something was wrong with me. And to be able to put all of that angst into Monica and put her up on screen, and that's what I love so much, is still men's reaction to you as that character, because growing up I never felt like anybody's ideal. So to see that people love, and men love Monica.
And so do women.
And women. It's just a really beautiful thing to me.
So, did you learn any lessons while shooting that film, that first film of yours, Gina Prince Bythewood?
Can you get my name right? Yes. The first one, it's amazing how much you learn. And, you know, I will speak personally, just a couple phenomenal lessons. Foremost, as a director, Sanaa set the tone really for every other actor that I've worked with and wanted to work with. Because of your work ethic. And so you showed me what I want. And, you know, it wasn't always for a good reason, but Sanaa did train about 3 months prior to getting the role because she wanted it that much, and I was having trouble making the decision. But yeah, to have someone that wants something that badly, that's inspiring. And so I always look for that work ethic. I learned that as a director, your biggest job is to create a space where your actors feel safe enough to give you everything. And early on, I didn't always provide that for you, and I had to come to that, because sometimes, especially on your first one, you're so hyper-focused on, I can't mess this up, and you forget that there's people. But
yeah, that actors are people and not like robots. So yeah.
Can I finish?
Oh, sorry, I was just trying to make this a conversation.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna just say, I was just gonna say, just to your point, that, you know, the thing that made me just fight so hard for this to play this role is because I had been in Hollywood, you know, all my life, but as a professional actor, just a few years, and I was starting to work, and to read that script, like what people experience when they watch Love and Basketball, I experienced reading that script. I mean, it was such a page turner. I laughed, I cried, and I was like, I have to be a part of telling this story. And yes, you were tough. You were tough because this was your baby. You had worked on it for so long, and here was this actress she actually wanted a basketball player who could act, as opposed to an actress who she would have to teach, because somebody had told her that if you hire an actress, it's not going to be believable. So
I mean, I said that to myself. I had said that, but then yes, somebody else encouraged it as well.
And so when she hired me, it was almost a little bit reluctantly, and that's the energy that I got. But because I'd come from the theater, you know, I was just trained to the director is, you know, you just do whatever the director wants, and it's not about, you know, being friends, it's about the work. And one of the things that I always admire you for is, by the end of the shooting, we were in Spain, and we shot the Spain sequence last. And you came to me, and you came to my hotel room, and you said, what do you think that I can learn? Do you have any notes for me? And I was like, well, yeah, we have some time. No, but like, I thought that was really big of you. I thought that was emotionally mature of you, and you kind of trusting in me that I would give you, you know, real honest feedback. I just have always been impressed with that. And you took it. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and the other, it's fascinating. If you had seen Sanaa and I at the beginning of Love and Basketball to where we are now, it's a beautiful thing. But that came, I think, with both of us recognizing, respecting each other as artists, and that certainly for me came in again, her work ethic, but also in the editing room. Again, being so hyper-focused on set, it wasn't until being in the editing room and seeing the dailies and cutting it together and realizing, damn, Sanaa is really, really dope. And then I just had this incredible, gratefulness for what you gave to it. And I think that kind of opened us up to be able to become friends. Because for me personally, as a director, I like that relationship on set, and it's certainly sustained us through the other things that we've done.
What other things have we done, Gina?
It would be Disappearing Acts and Shots Fired.
Yes.
But I do want to touch on the biggest thing I learned out of everything is how important it is for director and actor to trust each other. Like, you cannot break that. And I've learned it in two ways. One, Alfred Woodard, who is just the goddess. And the very first rehearsal I had, it was a scene between you and Alfred. And we did the scene. Alfred wasn't very good, which is weird to say. But she said, how was that? And I said, oh, that was great. And she just looked at me and she said, no, it wasn't. And now I can't trust you. And that, like I was so wrecked. But it was the perfect advice for, a first-time director, that they're looking at us and for our vision and needing to trust us. And at that moment on, I've never lied to an actor about the performance. You have to be up front. And the other, was a story I have told before, but it's apropos, and it had to do with you and the slap between you and Alfred. And again, given the relationships Sanaa and I had building, it was getting better. We get to the scene towards the end of the shoot, and it's when Monica's mom slaps her, and we did the take, and it's fake. And I just didn't like...
Because you're not supposed to really slap somebody. You have to,
Yeah.
where they don't touch you and then they add the sound effect.
Yes, but I wasn't feeling your performance for the moment. And we did it again, same thing. So then Alfred came to me and said, do you want me to hit her? And like a little piece of me was like, ah. But I said, no, I could never do that because Sanaa would never be able to trust me. And so Alfred went back. She did it again. This time she slapped your leg. And you
She
started
slapped
laughing.
the shit out of me.
No, it's not that. She slapped your leg first. And you started laughing.
Oh, I did? I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah. And so then did the take again. And I'm sitting at the monitor and I'm watching and
She slapped me. And you know what? Honestly, it was great because for me, it's like whatever. Film is forever. That's my philosophy. So you do whatever it takes to get what you need.
And it was.
To a point. But like for me, it helped me. So
yeah, it was. I got the performance.
and then Alfred goes, "Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that." She totally meant to do that. Okay.
Well, the end of the story is after it happened, and it was a great performance. And you and Alfred then just started bawling after I said cut and hugged each other. And then you came up to me and you asked me, did you tell her to slap me? And I was able to say no, I didn't. So that
Lied to me.
I didn't lie. I never said for her to slap me. I wouldn't do that.
So, Gina, you've always had a creative fire in your life. What do you love about being a writer-director? And what's the writing process for you?
So I love being a writer-director. I think it's the best thing because it's wholly your vision. You write it, and as you're writing, you're seeing it. And you just know everything. You know the character of the story better than anybody. And that's gives you such a confidence. I'm a control freak, so I love the control as well. And there is a power in that. You're creating characters in the world. It's a beautiful thing. But writing for me is really hard. It's depressing and lonely and self-loathing, and it's like I usually gain weight when I write, and then just because I eat Junior Mints as a gift to myself every time I finish a scene.
How many? A whole box?
I have, no, it's a jar. A jar at my desk. But it's just really hard. And it's long. Like I take a long time to write. Love and Basketball was 1.5 years. Beyond the Lights was 2 years. But then when you get on set, that's all adrenaline, and it's just fun, and it's collaborating. And for me as a director, the thing that's most exciting is to see an actor take my words to a place I didn't even imagine, and that's the excitement I have certainly with working with you. The trust I have when I write it, I know it's going to go somewhere else. Like that's exciting to do, and I had that benefit with Miss Warren there on the last project. That thing of just working with a dope actor that could take your stuff to another level, and you're always chasing that perfect take, and it's just fun on set.
And Gina, one thing I will say about you is she will not stop until she gets what she wants. There have been times where we have done like 100 takes.
You've
and I'm like,
never
are you
done
kidding me right now?
100 takes. But if you don't get it on set, it's not in the editing room.
I admire that. You got it early on with me, but you just had to see it in the dailies. All right, so You have been an ever-present figure in the industry at times when opportunities were scarcer for female directors and times when it felt like having a female director seems all the rage. How has the change in gender equality impacted your film work?
Wow. Yeah, this thing about female directors and the lack of opportunity, it's just so bizarre to me because it just makes no sense. Like, talent has no gender. It's just, yet when you get to Hollywood, I think a year ago, it was 8% of films were directed by women, which means what's going out in the world, 92%, is that good math? 92% is from a male point of view. Even our images, it makes no sense whatsoever. I don't get it, and it doesn't change. I mean, this past year, I will say, felt like a bit of a watershed because of the types of films. I think there were 6 kind of tentpole movies that were made by women. The pandemic obviously hit, and most didn't get to come out, but I don't get it. But for me, it's always just been keeping my head down, knowing I deserve to be here, and want to make the films I want to make, and they're always a fight. It's just been being in a sustained fight for 20 years to tell these stories. I'm waiting for it to change. It hasn't changed, but I just feel like it's my responsibility, and you'll find it too, that once you're in that door, you gotta pull others through you. It's not cool to be the only one in the room, even at this day and age. So it's why I have the scholarship. It's why I'm so excited about you coming up into the ranks, and I know that you'll do the same thing and pull others back.
No, it's just me. Great. So, how have you managed to stay true to the stories that you want to tell amidst the ebbs and flows of trends in the industry? How do you manage to cut out all the noise and listen to what you truly think will serve your work, serve your storytelling?
Yeah, that's the most important thing you need to have as a filmmaker, is vision and what you want to say to the world, because it's a false thing, these trends. Like if it's a sci-fi movie does well, then everybody suddenly wants to do a sci-fi movie. But the reason that movie might have done well is something personal the filmmaker brought to it. So to chase that kind of thing is just inauthentic, and you're gonna fail. So the key is just stay true to the stuff that you want to say and you want to tell. And I did learn that early on with Love and Basketball, because as I was writing it, I mean, I had nothing. I was nowhere in the industry. I was writing this personal story. It was taking me forever, and I started getting panicked that no one would care about this film. And I put it down and started to write this romantic comedy that I thought would sell, and struggling with that too. And at that point, I got an opportunity to rewrite a movie that had already been shot. And I had nothing, and my agents were saying, just get your foot in the door. Doesn't matter what it is, just get your foot in the door. So I said I would take the meeting. They sent me the film. I won't say what film it is, but it was awful, and it was offensive, and I hated it, and I hated what it was saying about us. There were just horrible scenes in it that were demeaning to us. Yet again, my agents in my ear, just get your foot in the door. And so I wrote up all my notes for it to go to the meeting, and I had left the DVD in the DVD player, and my husband happened to start watching it before the meeting, and he just looked at me right before I was about to go, and he said, "What are you doing?" And everything that I was saying in my head, he said. And I started crying, and because I knew I wasn't staying true to myself. I still had to take the meeting. I went there, gave him all my ideas, and one of the execs, it was a black film, but it was all white execs, and this woman said, "These are such great ideas, but they're too smart for our audience." And at that point, I was like, why am I here? And so left the meeting, called my agents. I said they could have all my ideas, take them. I don't want anything to do with it. And went home, had one more cry, and then picked up Love and Basketball again, and started writing, and realized I gotta do this. I gotta write the stories that I want to tell and put it out into the world. Yeah.
So Gina, when I was kind of trying to get this directing job that I now have, I had to go through a very intense 2-month process where I had to do a deck. I didn't know any of these things that you had to do in order to audition as a director, and you were really helpful in that, explaining the process to me. And I remember at one point I did my presentation for her, and she was so hard on me, I almost felt like I wanted to cry. I felt like I was back in drama school. I was like, yo, you're being really tough. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is how me and Reggie are with each other. So can you talk a little bit about you and Reggie, your husband, and how you guys just hold each other accountable, and how that relationship works with your professional careers?
Yeah, it's so important to have someone in your life who will be brutally honest, because it's too hard out there, and you get one chance to make a first impression. If you don't knock out that meeting, you're not going to get it. You don't get to go in and try it again. And so for Reg and I, we are that hard on each other with our scripts, and we beat each other up. And it takes courage to do that as well, because when he gives me notes, I get an attitude. I think that, of course, I think my stuff is ready, and it's great. And to hear him say it's not ready, it takes me about a day. But then I'm like, oh, he's actually right about that. And it's the same thing, because it's so easy to just say, oh, this is great, honey. Or your friend, oh, you sound great, Sanaa. That's not helping you. I do remember that call. But my focus was, I want Sanaa to get this gig. And what you were presenting was so good, it just needed some work. And so for one moment I felt guilty because of your reaction, but then I can't, because being a director, especially a female, being a Black female director, like you gotta,
Yeah, and I appreciated it. When I knew where it was coming from, I totally appreciated it. Yeah, and you said to me, you were like, it's because I care. So it worked. All right, so. I already read that one. Okay, so you said in a New York Times article, and it stayed with me in the most beautiful way, you said, whether you have a couple of $1 million or $100 million, it has to start with story. Can you talk about a specific instance or project where you either felt artistically compromised or artistically liberated, given how much money was in the budget?
It's, that came out of the old guard. The old guard, I went from my last film, which was $7 million, which was Beyond the Lights, and trying to make a film about the music industry on $7 million and make it feel authentic and real was really hard, and you had to be really creative. And I actually think that's a great learning thing. I think it's harder to make a movie for little money than it is to make a big blockbuster, even though Hollywood doesn't believe that. But I needed to take that mentality into the old guard, where I had, 10 times that budget. There's a feeling to be complacent, and you can just throw money at issues. But you can't have that mentality. You can't think that way. And because of the bigness, when there's that much money, there's so many voices that are suddenly in the mix. It's not just you and your vision. You can't just do what you want. Even though, again, I took that mentality into it. You have to take that fight. But it was actually Rian Johnson who he was doing the last Star Wars he did, and he invited me on set because I just wanted to go and learn. And I was overwhelmed by the bigness. I mean, you've got, Tribeca is walking by. Like, how do you not get overwhelmed by the bigness of this? And he said those exact words, that it doesn't matter how much money you have to tell a good story first. So on the days of the old guard, where it was so big and there's just hundreds of people around, everyone's staring at you, wondering, do you know what you're doing? It was just going back to, okay, I know how to tell a story. I can have confidence in that, and you just have to live in that, because there's so much pressure at that level.
What current events in our world have inspired you to incite change through your work, if any?
Essentially, how Hollywood has changed over the events of last year, except that for most of us, that's been happening. So that's always inspired my work. It just felt like George Floyd and Breonna, finally others were listening and feeling what we've been feeling. But that feeling has been with me from day one, and so it's always been my push to put Black folks up on screen and in every genre, so just to show the breadth of our humanity, because it just wasn't being shown. It was always just one thing, and that's it's a hard fight to put that, but you have to be up for the fight because there's so few of us, and it's important. And again, the fact that you're coming out with the story that you're coming out with, like, we have to tell those stories, because when people can see a character and identify with, and you start empathizing, you think about the trajectory of President Obama. I mean, absolutely, having a Black president on the #1 show, 24, it did start to normalize it. And if we can do that more with our work and get more projects out and normalize who we are and who we can be, I just think it's going to change the game.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, about the power of seeing yourself reflected in stories?
Yeah, it is absolutely everything. The way I grew up, I was adopted by white parents, well, Salvadorian mother and a white father, and so even in my house, I didn't see myself reflected. So I was like painfully shy. I'm still shy, but it was painfully shy, because I just had no self-esteem. Thank God for sports, because that did give me what I was missing. But so not only not seeing myself in my home, but turning on the TV, going to the theater, I just didn't see myself. And it wasn't until I was 17, I forgot what movie I went to see, but the trailer for She's Gotta Have It came up. And I remember literally like being blown back in my seat, staring up on the screen, and that feeling that came over me, like, I just want to give that, because we don't get it enough. And so that certainly inspired me in terms of what I wanted to fight for and put up for. But you have to be able to see yourself. And I think about my boys and why I took the old guard. One, I wanted to move into that space, but it literally was my older son Cassius, when he was 13. We had just seen a big Marvel movie. This is before Black Panther, but he said, why don't I get to see myself as a superhero? And I was like, damn, I'm in this industry and I'm not giving that to him. And he needs to see that. You think about what that would do to grow up and think of yourself as a superhero, and how so many other kids get to do that. So that changed my thinking from, women do not get to make those type of films. I changed it from, I wish I could, to I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that for Cassius.
That's right. Yeah, and seeing yourself reflected is directly related to self-esteem and self-worth. You think about, like, even infants, like, they're taking in so many images, whether it's through billboards or just the TV being on, and it starts that little to see yourself in those roles. So I do feel like there has been a demand for change, to have more representation behind the scenes. Do you feel like there's, ever since BLM and the pandemic, it feels like there is a push? Do you feel like?
I do feel that there is a push. I do feel it waning a bit in Hollywood. Like, it was, that quick. I mean, there was a fervor for a moment, but there has been some things that have sustained itself. You can't get away with things that you could before. I do see a desire, and the thing is, if they do one movie with us in it, then suddenly they feel they've done it. But I do feel this, my next film that I'm gonna do, a couple years ago, no way could I have been making a film about Black female warriors in the 1800s. Would never have happened. So there is a shift.
Can you talk a little bit about that movie that you're shooting? I'll let you finish your thought, but after that.
But yeah, I have seen, it just depends on the people. There's a company I worked with, and a lot of us got this, they started calling me about advice of how they could be better. But it was legit. They were legit trying to figure that out. And they would ask questions. If we have a black lead in, they had a movie, they wanted to change the lead to be a black girl, but does that mean they have to have a black writer or a black director? And I said, hey, you gotta have somebody black as, you know, guiding it, or else you get that thing of, you have a black character in a movie and they have no black friends and they don't have parents, and it's just a weird thing, and you could tell they just put them there for a reason, as opposed to, if you're gonna do that, then give them a full life, make them authentic and real. So they hired a black writer for that, which I felt really good about. But then there are others that talk a good game, and then you walk into their company for a meeting and you literally will walk through the entire thing and not see one black person except for maybe one black assistant who they hired because there's been a fervor. So you need more folks, and I just think with the old guard, like the things that I discovered about movies like that, and our place in them was staggering. And if I had not been in the director's chair, the character of Nile, who's a young black female, would have been totally different. She would not have been a co-lead. She would not have had any agency. She would have not been involved in the story. And so then you realize why it's important that there's just a variety of voices telling these stories and not one thing.
So the old guard is not easily, kind of categorized in one genre, just like Love and Basketball. It's not an action project. It's not a by-the-book sci-fi thriller. We see a relationship between a gay couple, something that is rarely depicted in a big project like this. What drew you to the old guard? Was it the multi-dimensional storyline with complicated and intricate relationships? Gina?
It was a couple of things. One, as I said, Cassius and what he wanted. And then the story just moved me. I just thought I just hadn't seen a movie like that before that had these two female leads, one a young black female. It had this gay couple, it had a Muslim character. It was all these people who are never, or very rarely shown as heroes. And that's what made it different for me. That's what I felt elevated it, and I wanted to be a part of it, of bringing these characters to life and to protect them as well. And again, knowing what I went through to protect their characters, it is a fight because people want to just focus on one thing. So I dug it, and it moved me, and I felt it had a beautiful message about purpose, which I think we all can struggle with. So I was just excited to do that.
What story haven't you told yet? Laughing.
You know why. There's a lot. I'm excited.
Can you give us, a dream project,
Mm-hmm.
or two or three?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that I've had a movie in my head for 3 years, personal story. I've told you about it. It will have Sanaa in it.
If I'm available. The right price. Just not gonna go there.
But I was, after the old guard, which was 2 years of my life, I really wanted to go back and do something personal and a little smaller, and I was all set to write it. And then the script for The Woman King came, and it's like our Braveheart, and I could not turn it down. And it's Viola Davis. Who's Viola Davis? I just want to go play with her, and couldn't pass it up. So this project is in my head. We'll have to wait, but my absolute dream project is, and it's for my second son, who's named Toussaint, is a story, Toussaint L'Ouverture. It's an incredible, true story. It's epic. Again, it's another version of our Braveheart, and I need to tell that story, and I want to do it for him.
Love that.
Of course, I just gave away my dream project.
I know. But yours will be the best. There'll be like 3 of them. Those are all my questions. Should we open up to the audience. Do you guys have any questions? Yes?
How y'all doing? Big fan. My question was for Miss Gina. Like Miss Sanaa Lathan said, she's directing her first few projects. Was there any advice that you gave her or she asked you directly about when you figure out she was directing her projects?
Sanaa, what did I tell you?
She, when I was kind of presenting my vision to the studio about why I wanted to tell the story, she really made me hone in on why I have to tell the story. So really dropping that in, what the story means to you, why this is going to be something that's special with your vision, and why this story needs to be told, and why do you have to tell it. Really getting that, the emotion of that, and being very specific and clear about that.
Yeah, being a first-time director, when you go into that room to try and get that first gig, you're not going to have the resume, of course, but passion means a lot. And if you can go in and connect them with your why, of why you have to do it, not why you want to do it, but why you have to, people respond to that. And Sanaa's why was so dope and so connective. It moved me, and I said, you got to tell them that, because then they feel like you are the best person and the only person to tell it. And so, again, Sanaa has a short film. It's a very good short film, but now they're about to give her millions of dollars and trust her with it. And it was because her presentation was so good. So not only having that why, but doing that extra thing. And it sucks. All the work you have to do. You got to put together a book. You got to put together the sizzle reel. It's a lot. But when you put that work in, always remember, damn, somebody else might be putting that work in. So always outwork everybody as well, and show that you are the person for the job.
Hi, my name is Lynn Q. Young. I'm a writer, director, producer, so I'm a control freak as well. So happy. I have a film that screened at Tribeca, but I was so happy to see that they had Black women doing something. Probably one of the first people that bought the ticket. Because I'm a control freak, I always wonder about Final Cut. And how do you, when do you get it, right? And then how do you negotiate with people who are giving you the money for it, who are trying to convince you to compromise your vision?
That is a really good question. It is the thing that every director wants, is to get Final Cut. In Hollywood, if you win an Oscar, you can get Final Cut. If you've done enough films, you should ultimately get Final Cut. I'm about to do my 6th film. I don't have a Final Cut yet. I told my folk though, after this, I gotta get it. Whereas Lena, my girl, her first film that she wrote, she got Final Cut on it. I'm like, what the? But because there was she had won that Emmy, and then she wrote something that there was a bidding war. So that's the thing, if you have a bidding war on something,
You have leverage.
yeah, absolutely leveraged. It is really hard to get. The thing that saved me on The Old Guard is because the producer, Skydance, they had Final Cut. And because they loved my vision and my version of the movie, that then became my Final Cut. So,
Has there ever been a Final Cut that you were not happy with?
I would say actually it is just a constant fight to keep it. I don't like the word compromise because it feels like you're compromising your vision, which is not right. And my argument always to the studios when we've had a conflict on something is that, you guys have a ton of movies, I only have a couple. This is my legacy is my work, and I have to believe everything up on screen. And that's usually worked. I mean, I think the biggest, scariest fight I had was on The Secret Life of Bees. It's based on a book. For me, going in, my vision, I wanted to tell the story of a little girl who killed her mother and had to live with that. And I pitched that. That's what it was. And I got a note early on that they thought, oh, well, wouldn't it be better to have that be a mystery? Did she kill her or not? And I said, well, it's a bestseller. Most people know what happened. So they let me shoot it. I shot it that way. We tested it. It tested in the 90s. I was done. And then another set of producers who had a lot of power came in at literally, I'm in the final mix, and they said, no, what would be amazing is if you hid the fact that she killed her mother. And they had the power where I had to stop what I was doing and cut a version of that. And it literally felt like death to me because they had more power than me. And I did it, and I could have tanked it and just cut something to prove it wouldn't work. But God help us if something happened and it had to go out in the world like that, and I just don't have that mentality. But I did that, and then we tested both of them, that version and then mine again, and they tested exactly the same. But all the producers wanted that version. And the head of the studio, Peter Rice, I'll never forget it, because I was in such a bad place at that point. He called and he said, all right, what do you want to do as a filmmaker? And I said, I want my version. And he said, okay. Like, that never happens, and ever. But the fact that he did that and put the filmmaker first above these other folk, I've never forgotten it. But that was the scariest kind of moment. And again, that's why you want that final cut. Because as a director, it is your vision. It shouldn't mean that you don't hear other people's thoughts and notes, because there can be good stuff coming in, but it is a thing. I've got to have it on my next one, because every movie I've had, there's been fights where I know I'm right about this, and to have to continue to argue, and sometimes you get notes that are about ego or about arbitrary stuff and not the movie. And I feel like if you're the director, always put the movie first. If you argue that way and not about your ego, oftentimes you can win those fights.
But did Love and Basketball, did they change it, anything with that?
It's interesting you say that, because we just we're gonna have a criterion of Love and Basketball, which is about to come out, and so I have the chance to go in and make any changes. But there was only two things I wanted to change. One, I'm able to. I won't ruin it. It'll be on it. The one thing I couldn't change was the original love theme, even though I love the love theme.
Okay, you talk about that. Talk about that. About the MPAA.
Yeah. So. Well, there was two things that happened with the love scene between, I was going to say Omar and Sanaa, but Monica and Quincy. When I got no notes from the studio was amazing, but the one note I got is after they watched the dailies of the love scene, they said, she doesn't look like she's enjoying it enough. And I'm like, it's her first time. It's not that great. But I agreed to shoot some more footage. But some of the new footage ended up in it. So I'm actually happy I did that. But we didn't change what we were doing.
I was talking about the rating.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving you the setup.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So then we send the movie to the MPAA, and I had to deliver a PG-13 movie, and we get back an R because of the love scene. I'm like, there's no nudity. Why is it an R? And they said, because it's too real. And I'm like, well, that's a good thing. That's just great performance. So I had to go back and make some trims. I did. We sent it back. Got an R still. And then I started using, and it's hard because you can't actually argue with the MPAA. You don't get to meet them. But we sent a letter saying a movie, Meet Joe Black, had just come out, and it showed Brad Pitt losing his virginity. But that was their issue, that you're showing a girl losing her virginity.
And then there was Cider House Rules, right?
Yes, and Cider House Rules, which were showing, but those were from the male point of view. So then you start getting pissed off about it. So then I had to go back again, and I said to myself, if they make me go back a third time, I'm just going to go with the R. But I did one more cut, and we got the PG-13. But in retrospect, thank God I did that, because my point is I wanted young girls to see the movie, and that would have knocked that out of it. But I wanted the original love scene back in, but we could not find the footage. So, yeah.
Any questions?
Hi, Miss Gina. Hello, Miss Sanaa. I'm a Colombian actress, and I would like to ask about your process, or the way you work with your actors. What's the process to get them into character, to build together those characters? And, if possible, what do you look, when choosing your actors, what is that thing that you're looking for in them?
And so I'll start with the second part, and then Sanaa and I can talk about the first one.
She's looking for me.
Always so. Yeah, there's 4 things I look for in an actor: craft, and I'd like when people have gone to school and studied, because you have something to draw on, and it shows a desire to be great, that you're willing to learn. The only person that I've worked with who didn't go through that was Dakota Fanning, and she's just otherworldly and stunning. But I love craft. You need to be bold. I need to know that you're going to go there, no matter what the circumstance. Work ethic. Again, working with Sanaa and how hard she worked to embody the character. Working with Gugu on Beyond the Lights in her 6 months of training. And the 4th, though it could be the first, be a good person. I have had, in my 25-year career, only, thank God, 2 bad experiences with actors. I'll never go through it again. It poisons everything. There's no reason to be an asshole.
And do you think you could have found out? Do you think you didn't do your homework?
I did not.
Is that what it is?
After the first experience that you and I went through together, it was bad, and I didn't know it could be like that. I was early in my career, and after that I did due diligence, and if I was thinking about hiring somebody, I would ask around, and there were a couple people, some of your faves, that I will not work with because you heard what it was. And then later on in my career, I did not do my due diligence on someone because I hadn't heard anything. Usually you hear kind of whispers. As soon as I cast this person, then suddenly people came out of the woodwork. It's like, but it's too late. Yeah, but it's just what we do is too hard, and it's too beautiful for anyone to poison that. So you just want to work with good people who respect the process and respect the craft. So those are my 4 things. I love working with actors. I love building character. Like you and I have shifted it because obviously I got better, even though the whole rehearsal process is the best part for me, in giving actors information, stuff about the character, stuff about the time, research, the same research I go through as a writer, I share with the actors. Music is a huge thing for me and part of my process. What else? I give you nothing. It just all comes from you.
I'm sorry, I just drifted. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. What do you think about, what do you think about like somebody like Chloe Zhao? Am I saying her name right? The director, who works with real people, and how I felt like that was really successful. Would you ever do that?
Yeah, I mean, she works a specific way, and it's a really beautiful way to work. I mean, I'm just different. I could say in certain roles that, I mean, it came down to the whole thing. Was I going to cast a ball player or you? And at the end of the day, I want that craft. I want to know that in that close-up, you're going to make me feel. And that, yeah, craft is the most important thing.
Next question.
Can you both, now that you're both directing, talk about the process by which you get approached to be a director? And, you know, if somebody had an idea and they wanted to work with you, what are the steps to get to that conversation? And then a little more about future ideas or of films that you would like, or series even, that you would like to be involved with.
Well, Sanaa's easy. You can just...
Huh? I'll go first. So, You can tell we have like a sister relationship right now. But anyway, it's obviously very different. I'm an actress who's been doing it forever, and in a weird way, the universe has kind of been like encouraging me to open that door for many years. I was asked to be a mentor to directors at the Directors Lab, just working with a bunch of new directors who I was actually helping as I was starring in, you realize after a while that you've absorbed so much.
And
just,
dad, obviously.
Yeah, and I grew up in the business. My dad is, he's really like the first Black director in television. And I was just reminded by a cousin of mine that I always said I wanted to be a director like my dad when I was growing up, and then acting kind of like took me on a different road. So it's just amazing how life comes full circle. But I was asked to do this short about the pandemic, and I did the short during the quarantine, the initial quarantine, and it came out well, and my agents were just like, yeah, can we submit you for directing? And I was like, sure. And it was just kind of kismet. The film that I'm on now, the director had to drop out of because of scheduling. And so it was a fast kind of process, and it was between me and about 3 other directors, and it was just an intense, I don't even remember fighting that hard for a job since Love and Basketball. It was just an intense kind of 2 months of doing presentations and sharing my vision and honing it and doing sizzle reels, and it was great because it was like, in a way, it was doing my homework for the actual job that I'm gonna have in the fall. And I had Gina, I called her a bunch of times, I got on her nerves, I could tell. No. So yeah, and she'll keep getting calls.
Which I'm happy to get. I'm in a little different space in that it's interesting because when you first come out, my whole goal was to get in a place where scripts would come to me to direct. But now, having done the last 2, which I didn't write, I miss having written what I'm directing. And so after The Woman King, I'm gonna go back and go back to.
Didn't you adapt The Woman King?
No, someone else did. I mean, I'm writing on it, but somebody else did it. So I want it to be something fully from me.
Do you find that you are more kind of attached or dropped into the things that you wrote yourself, or is it the same?
No, it's 100%. When you write it, it's all yours. That's why I actually have to do rewrites, at least on projects I'm going to do, like The Old Guard or Woman King, because it does connect me. Absolutely.
Great. We have one more question.
Hello, my name is Cameron Bonds, and I am first here on behalf of all the young women who were able to watch Love and Basketball and Brown Sugar and various other films, and we're able to see ourselves in many ways. And I don't want to be emotional, but I don't know if I'll ever have the chance again to say thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question for Ms. Gina is, writing and directing is a very personal work. And as things become very big, what are some of your processes to remain still or humble or just in touch with yourself and the meat of the stories that you want to tell internally?
Hey, I think it starts with the story that you're going to tell. Where does it come from? And when I write, it's always something that's eating at me. I think writing is great therapy, so there's always something personal in it, regardless of the genre or story. Knowing that we have a cause bigger than ourselves, that what we put in the world will have an effect on how somebody thinks about us or how we think about ourselves. Being passionate about the story. Like, is it a story you have to tell? That's just the difference that I've used. Oftentimes people say, why haven't you done a ton of movies? It's because I have to be passionate about it. I have 2 boys, I have a husband. If I'm gonna be away, it's gotta mean something. There has to be a reason for this. And so that's really my barometer. Do I have to do this? And that passion carries you because, Love and Basketball, everybody turned it down. Beyond the Lights, everybody turned it down. but you just need one yes. And if you're passionate about the story, then that sustains you and keeps you in the fight, and gets you past that no after no after no. It keeps you writing and rewriting, trying to get it better and better and better to get that yes. So passion is at the end of the day, be passionate about what you're writing, because writing is really, really hard. What gets you into that chair, it's a story that you cannot get out of your head, that you go to bed thinking about, that you wake up thinking about. So that's where I would start.
That was beautiful. I think that's a lesson for every profession, you know, that passion, find that passion. Thank you so much, Gina. This was such a wonderful
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all.
This was fun.